Some loves are meant to be forgotten. Others refuse to die, no matter how deep you bury them. For Margaret Chen and Elena Rossi, their love was the latter, a flame that smoldered beneath 23 years of silence, failed marriages, and carefully constructed lies. When Margaret's consulting firm sends her to restore a struggling vineyard in Sonoma Valley, she has no idea she's walking back into the arms of the woman she abandoned at 25. The woman whose heart she shattered to please a family that would never accept her. The woman who learned to survive without her, building an empire from grief and determination. But the past has a way of demanding its due, and some echoes grow louder with time, refusing to fade until they're finally heard. Margaret's rental car crunched over gravel as Rossi vineyards emerged through the morning mist like a memory taking shape. 23 years had carved lines around her eyes and silver through her black hair, but nothing had prepared her for the surge of recognition that hit her chest when she read the name on the weathered sign. Elena. Rossi, it couldn't be. The woman waiting on the porch wore work boots and exhaustion like a second skin. Time had been generous to Elena 51, looked like expensive wine on her, all depth and complexity. Her dark curls, now threaded with distinguished gray, were pulled back in a careless knot. Those amber eyes that once saw through every defense Margaret possessed narrowed with recognition. Then something harder, Margaret Chen. Elena's voice carried the rasp of someone who'd spent years shouting orders across fields. Of all the consultants in California, they send me my ex-girlfriend. Elena, Margaret's carefully prepared speech dissolved. I didn't know this was your vineyard. Why would you? Elena descended the steps with the confidence of a woman who'd built something from nothing. You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with my dreams. Or me. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling through years of regret. Margaret had left Elena to marry David Chen, a suitable man from a suitable family, giving her conservative parents the picture-perfect daughter they demanded. That marriage had lasted 12 miserable years before David Teffer gave her an escape, had she was too cowardly to open herself. I deserve that, Margaret said quietly, but I'm here professionally. Your board hired my firm because you're 3 months from bankruptcy. Elena's jaw tightened. My board consists of vultures waiting to carve up my life's work. My wife died 2 years ago, cancer. She was the one who understood the business side. The vulnerability in her voice lasted only a heartbeat before armor slid back into place. I suppose you're here to tell me everything I'm doing wrong. I'm here to help you save this place. Margaret gestured to the rolling hills of vines, golden in the morning light. If you'll let me. Elena studied her with those eyes that still saw too much. Help, that's rich coming from you. You know what helped me when you left? Rage. I turned my grief into this vineyard. Every vine I planted was a middle finger to everyone who said girls like us were going through a phase. She crossed her arms. Maria understood that. She stood beside me when I had nothing but dirt and determination. The mention of Elena's late wife sent an unexpected lance of something shameful through Margaret's chestnut. Quite jealousy of a dead woman, but close enough to make her hate herself. I'm sorry for your loss, Margaret said, and meant it. And I'm sorry for what I did to you. I was a coward, was? Elena's smile held no warmth. Well, Consultant Chen, my cowardice is structural. The wineries in the barn? Try not to break anything else while you're here. The winery's books were a disaster wrapped in denial and tied with outdated practices. Margaret spent 3 days in Elena's cramped office, surrounded by ledgers that smelled of wine and neglect, while Elena worked the fields with her small crew. They orbited each other like binary stars. Pulled by gravity, they both resented. On the 4th morning, Margaret found Elena in the barrel room. hand pressed against oak like she was taking its pulse. The 22 Cabernet, Elena said without turning. Maria's last vintage. She chose these barrels herself 2 weeks before diagnosis. Her voice carried the hollow quality of someone who'd told this story before, trying to make it hurt less through repetition. I can't bring myself to bottle it. Feels like sealing away the last piece of her. Margaret set down her tablet. Tell me about her. Elena's laugh was bitter. Why? So you can analyze our relationship like one of your spreadsheets? Because she mattered to you. Because I'm trying to understand who you became. Something shifted in Elena's expression, surprise, maybe. That Margaret had offered something personal instead of professional. She ran her fingers along the barrel's curve. Maria was my opposite. Practical where I was passionate. She saw me destroying myself with grief over you and said, either let it kill you or use it to build something. So we built this. Elena gestured to the rows of barrels. She taught me that love doesn't have to be fire and poetry. Sometimes it's just showing up day after day. It sounds like a good marriage. It was a survival pact that became real. Elena finally looked at Margaret. She knew about you. I told her everything on our third date because I was still so angry I could barely function. She said, good, anger is energy. Let's make wine that makes people weep. Her smile was genuine this time, sad but warm. And we did. Margaret felt the weight of roads not taken. I made different choices. David was nice, safe, everything my parents wanted. He gave me a beautiful daughter, and I'll never regret Rebecca. She paused. But I spent 12 years being someone's wife and forgetting to be myself. When he cheated, I felt relieved. How terrible is that? It's honest. Elena moved to another barrel, checking the temperature gauge. Honesty from you. That's new. I learned it the hard way. After David, I went to therapy for 3 years. Built my consulting firm. Focused on Rebecca. Tried dating women finally, but ... double quotes Margaret trailed off. But what? But none of them were you. The admission hung in the cool air between them. And I knew I didn't deserve to look for you. Not after what I did. Elena's hand stilled on the gauge. You broke me, Margaret. It took years to put myself back together, and the woman who emerged wasn't the girl you left. I don't know if I can trust you not to break me again. I don't know if I can trust myself, Margaret admitted. But I'm not here to resurrect the past. I'm here to help you save your future. The solution to Rossi Vineyard's financial crisis was both simple and painful. Pivot from small batch artisanal wines to a hybrid model that included a tasting room, events, and a signature reserve line. Elena resisted every suggestion like Margaret was proposing she bulldoze Maria's grave. This isn't a carnival, Elena snapped during a particularly tense meeting. This is a winery with a reputation for excellence. A reputation that 6 people know about, Margaret countered. Elena, your wines are extraordinary. But extraordinary wines in a closed barn don't pay mortgages. You need revenue streams, plural. Maria would hate this. Maria would hate you losing everything you built together more. Margaret softened her voice. I've read her notes in these ledgers. She was already planning expansion before she got sick. She understood business evolution. Elena's anger crumbled into something more vulnerable. If I change everything, what am I preserving? This place is my last connection to her. Margaret crossed the office, years of distance suddenly feeling like miles too many. You're preserving her dream of sustainability, of legacy. The buildings and bottles are just containers, Elena. The love you poured into this place. That's what matters. That adapts. That survives. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Margaret saw the 28-year-old woman who'd once looked at her like she hung the moon. Then Elena's phone rang. Rebecca, Margaret's daughter. whose unexpected visit had been scheduled for that weekend. The next day, Rebecca arrived with her girlfriend, Sophie, both bright with a kind of unself-conscious joy Margaret had never allowed herself at 24. Watching Elena laugh with them over dinner, trading stories about coming out across generations, Margaret felt time collapse. Mom was a disaster, Rebecca told Elena cheerfully. Came out to me when I was 16 like she was confessing to murder. I was like, cool, can you help me with calculus now? Elena's smile was genuine. Your mother was always terrible at timing. I've noticed, Rebecca said, glancing between them with the uncomfortable perception of adult children everywhere. She's talked about you, you know. When I came out, she cried and told me about the woman she left behind to make her parents happy. Said she hoped I'd be braver than she was. Margaret felt her face heat. Rebecca, it's okay, Mom. We all have origin stories. Rebecca squeezed Sophie's hand. Yours just took a while to get to the good part. Later, after the young women had retreated to the guest cottage, Elena found Margaret on the porch, watching stars emerge over the vineyards. You raised a remarkable human, Elena said softly. The one good thing I did right. Margaret paused. Elena, I need to tell you something. When I took this contract, I told myself it was just business. But standing here in the place you built, meeting the life you lived, I realize I've been lying to myself for 23 years. About what? Margaret turned to face her. About being over you. About that part of my life being closed. I'm not asking for forgiveness or second chances. I just needed you to know the truth. Elena was quiet for a long moment. The truth is terrifying, isn't it? The tasting room opened on a crisp October afternoon to a crowd that exceeded even Margaret's projections. Elena had thrown herself into the redesign with the same intensity she'd once reserved for fighting it, transforming the barn into a space that honored tradition while embracing possibility. The 22 Cabernet Maria's last vintage sold out in 3 hours at premium pricing, with proceeds designated for cancer research. She'd have liked that, Elena told Margaret as they watched the sunset from the new terrace. Making her final wine matter beyond just us. It's a beautiful legacy. So is this. Elena gestured to the crowds, the laughter, the life-filling spaces that had been silent too long. You were right, about all of it. I was so afraid of betraying Maria's memory that I was letting her dream die. Margaret felt the shift between them, something that had been thawing for months finally breaking free. What happens now? My contract ends next week. I know. Elena's voice was careful. I've been thinking about that, about what I want. After Maria died, I told myself I was done with love, that I'd had my share and asking for more was greedy. And now? Now I think maybe we get more than one chance at happiness. Maybe we get the chance we're brave enough to take. Elena turned to face her fully. I'm not the girl you left, and you're not the coward who ran. We're different people. But when I look at you now, I see someone who's done the work, who's honest about her failures, who showed up and helped me save everything that matters. Margaret's heart was doing complicated things in her chest. Elena, I want to explore what this could be, but I'm terrified of hurting you again. Good. Fear means you understand the stakes. Elena's smile was tentative but real. I'm terrified too, but I'm also 51 years old, and I've learned that regret tastes worse than risk. So here's what I propose. We start over, not as who we were, but as who we are. Slowly, honestly, with no promises except to show up and try. I can do that. Margaret reached out, and Elena took her hand, a simple gesture that felt monumental. My lawyer thinks I should hire you permanently, Elena continued. Expand the consulting into partnership. I need someone who understands both the business and the heart of this place. Are you offering me a job or a relationship? Yes. Elena's laugh was the freest sound Margaret had heard from her. Both, neither. Whatever we can build together. Rebecca goes back to college next month. Your lease in San Francisco ends then too. I have a cottage on the property that needs a tenant who appreciates good wine and second chances. Margaret felt tears threaten, the good kind, the kind that came from hope instead of loss. I spent 23 years trying to forget you. I don't want to waste whatever time we have left. Then don't. Elena squeezed her hand. Stay. Build something with me. Not a do-over of what we lost, but something new. Something that honors everything we survived to get here. As the last light faded over the vineyards, Margaret kissed Elena for the first time in 2 decades. A kiss that tasted of wine and patience, of wounds healed enough to risk opening again, of women who'd earned their happiness through fire and were finally brave. Enough to claim it. Some loves are meant to teach us. Others are meant to last. The rarest ones do both. Margaret and Elena's story didn't end with that kiss on the terrace. It began there. A second chapter written by women who'd learned that the best vintages require both time and transformation. Are you ready to explore your own second chances? Sometimes the love we thought we'd lost forever is simply waiting for us to become brave enough to reclaim it. What echoes from your yesterday are calling you home? Share your story of rediscovery and resilience. Because every ending is just a beginning waiting for courage.